presentation. If you could approve this, that'd be great. When we get into the conversation or the exchange, information will be turning the video off so that you can share in your own privacy and feel comfortable. So those are just a little bit of the logistics. And today we are talking about leadership career. And I am Anne Marie Carlson. I have been working with David Cooper now for a couple of years. My background is in education and in organizational development, strategic planning, change management, and diversity. But what I really find fascinating right now is learning about the healthcare industry and the challenges and trying to find out what the best practices are so that healthcare can pull itself up and out and start thriving again. So today we have Dr. Rhonda on as our guest, Dr. Rhonda Foster Smith. She has just added a name to that name, and we're so excited for her recent nuptials. She has quite an extensive background in, my goodness. So she's been the vice president of Duke's Children's Hospital, vice president of clinical services, and yikes, so many things here for you. Sorry, I'm messing up your.
No, you're not.
Interim vice president, chief nursing officer, vice president of patient care in Detroit. She is currently now an executive coach and consultant with David Cooper, and we are so excited to have her on our team. And I just want to ask you, Rhonda, how did you manage to do all of this and manage your leadership career?
You know what? That's really a good question. And I get asked about certain roles. How did you get? But what it comes down to is really strategic thinking. When I was in one of my programs, we had to do a strategic plan for our career. And I think that many times we don't think about doing that, but it gives you some landmarks and things to follow. Those were focused on my education primarily, but not necessarily on my role. But one of the things that I think is that nursing is a field that gives you so many opportunities, and there are so many things you can do within not just nursing, but in the healthcare space. So I think that if we start to think about creatively what kinds of things, what the possibilities are, and not look at what the job description is, it's a lot better. We're a lot better off. So I got all these experiences because I was looking at developing some skills, a certain skill set for my toolbox. And I looked for the role that would provide those. And I didn't necessarily look up. I looked sideways. I looked down. I looked all over the place diagonally, just because I wanted a certain set of skills. And I wanted to make sure that I was always operating within my passion. So I think when it comes down to, was it a straight trajectory? I would say no. It was pretty zigzagged trajectory, and that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds like it was exciting and adventuresome. I love this quote that we stole from you. The beauty of nursing is that it offers opportunities both through traditional organizations and via shared or collaborative governance structures to engage in all aspects of leadership. So this is a wonderful quote to start off the actual topics that we're talking about today. Let me jump into the very first question for you. And that is, how does one manage a leap from middle level management to senior level management?
Well, I think this leap has to truly be purposeful. And when I say that, I mean, you need to really start to think about, how much do I love leadership? Because the air gets pretty thin the higher you go up in terms of camaraderie, support. It gets a little bit, it's a little bit trickier. It's still fun. It's still purposeful. It's still mission oriented, but you really, really have to love leadership and love leading people and love inspiring people. and have a vision that aligns with the organization's vision. I think, again, it comes down to how motivated are you to work in a position like this that's not a 40-hour block of time. It doesn't stop. It's 24/7. And a lot of times people say, well, when can I stop working? And it's never, when you really think about it. But what's motivating you to think about a different position? Did you get, education? Because many times in schools, they say, now it's time for you to go to the next position. Is it because you've completed some education? Did your coworker just move up and you kind of compared yourself and say, well, if she can do it or he can do it, I can do it? But what's your motivation? Because your motivation is what's going to keep you in a role and help you sustain in the hard times. What relationships do you have currently in the position you're in now? I think the other thing that I would say, what outcomes do you have in the position that you're currently in? What you're looking for is a bigger step, which means the expectations are bigger as well. And you have to be able to know that there's a lot more self-direction and a lot of expectation of accountability and autonomy in those roles. Or has a mentor suggest that you're ready for a new role? And again, asking them after you get flattered, ask them, okay, so why do you say that? And what makes you think that I'm really capable of doing a different role? The next, when you look at the next role, I go back to passion. What are you passionate about? Are you passionate about families? Are you passionate about the nurses? Are you passionate about helping nurses? What are you passionate about? Because the passion should drive the work. And do you understand the responsibilities are associated with the role? And the best way to do that is talk to someone that's in the role right now, the role that you think you want to be in. And those conversations are never too early to have. When you can ask a person, so tell me how you knew you were ready for your next role, or how do you know when it's time to move? And one of my metrics is when I'm super comfortable, or when I can do it with my eyes closed, or when I'm no longer challenged. It's time to do something different. And asking yourself, would you be willing to do this work in another role, even if you didn't get paid for it? Now that taps into passion, because if you think about it, there's not many of us who will say, I'll volunteer for an experience. But many times you cut your teeth on volunteering for experiences. And do you have to volunteer for the whole thing? No. How about a committee? How about a leadership role? How about and taking on things to challenge yourself? Because that's not just a challenge for you, but it's also visibility for you. And I can remember so many staff nurses who took on leadership roles. Their next role was a leadership role because they were viewed as informal leaders before they took the role.
Rhonda, you just went right into our next question perfectly. What can informal leaders do to become a formal leader?
Well, I think the first thing you can do is not consider yourself informal. A leader, in my mind, is a leader, and a leader can, there are leaders at the bedside with the title of clinical nurse. There are leaders in offices with the title of director. But when I think about someone that's not in a straight line leadership position or don't have staff reporting to them, I also think about people who have to use other methods other than the strategic, the org chart to get to have influence. So think about how you influence, how you drive change from your seat. Think about the ways that you have inspired people from the seat you're in. Think about the impact you've had from the very seat you're in, and start to document those things. Keep a list of those things for yourself from when you update your resume. or your CV, because many times that's another thing that's not on that I want to throw in here. Keep that CV or resume updated. The time to do it is not when the job gets posted and now you're rushed. Keep whatever you do, just add it. Have a running list of things that go on your CV so that when it's time, when a position does pop up, you're ready. And there might be more than one version of it. That's okay. But when you think about informal leaders, we're going to use the same questions. What's motivating you? What do you want to do? And many times in these conversations, I'll say, what do you want to do and why? And are you thinking about a role and what kind of role are you thinking of? And again, most people start to think about what's on the org chart now. I would push you and almost beg you to not look at the org chart, but think about what things you'd like to be doing that's missing from the organization currently and create your own role.
Nice.
So do you have a new focus? Is it on staff or is it on operations? Is it education? Is it IT? And many times we don't think about the possibilities. Please, 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 when you're thinking about any role, don't think about what exists currently. Think about what might exist if you were the CEO of the organization and you can write your own job descriptions, because many jobs are created just that way. Again, what influence do you have in your informal role? Do people call on you? Are you considered a content expert? Are you considered the go-to for certain things? And if that's the case, why? And how is that an asset? And how do you pitch that asset? How do you align your interests with the organization mission, vision, and values or current needs? If you pay attention when they start rolling out those strategic initiatives, ask yourself, is there a job in here for me somewhere? Is there a possibility that I can create a role that's not in my organization, but might be in someone else's organization? And you might say, well, Rhonda, how will I know if it's in another organization? How about when you go to conferences, not sitting with the people that you know already, but sitting with people you don't know and say, hey, what kind of work do you do? And how was that role conceived? And the next role that you're going to be in, note that it requires a leader to supply support and care for nurses who care for the patients. Many times when we think about being a leader in nursing, we don't think about your new patient is the nurse. Your new person of importance is the nurse. Making sure, and so if you're thinking, I'm not thinking about, you mean I have to be responsible for 90 people, 120 people? The answer is yes. The needs of those people. And so if those masses, you say, that's not for me, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to, and I've heard people who have 3-4 people reporting to them going, I can't deal with their problems. Well, it's certain leadership roles will not be for you. And usually those are ones associated with people. And I don't mean that to be funny, but it's the truth, because people come with problems and problems come with people and all that.
Right. So that leads right to our next slide, which is talking about what are the characteristics of nurse leaders. There was a case study done by Hauser and Player, and they interviewed 12 nurse leaders in the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Executive Nurse Fellows. This was done in 2020. And they found out that, as Rhonda was saying, not only are you supposed to be visionary, scholarly, resilient, committed, courageous, responsive, and creative, you need to be innovative, thoughtful, and humble. They're expected to be the very best at what they do, and yet expected not to be self-important. So nursing teams were also expected to have vision, courage, and passion, and simultaneously be facilitative, sharing, and supportive. And all of the categories were adept at building and sustaining relationships. Rhonda, how do you do that?
It's purposeful. It truly is purposeful, because the role of leader, from when I think about my first head nurse, is what they were called then. When I think about my first head nurse, she was an excellent clinician. You did what she said. She controlled everything. She controlled when you worked, when you didn't work. She controlled everything. She ordered supplies. She didn't ask us, she didn't ask us anything. And I often think that if shared governance or shared decision making, shared leadership had been around back then, if I would have taken this leadership track, because what it comes down to, I always wanted to have influence over my career. And I always wanted to have influence over not just my career, but being able to participate in decisions, and just had a desire for leaders to say, hey, what do you think about this? And many times this new set of leadership skills is very, very different. The leader has to be courageous, which
can you
means,
go back to the other slide, please, while she's talking? Thanks, Rhonda. These are the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, you have to be courageous. And I think the order is the elements are the same. The order may be different. That no self-importance, meaning you're leading from the back. It wasn't your big, great idea. It was the way you got the ideas from the staff that makes a difference. The courage to have conversations that back then we didn't have conversations about. Lateral violence, bullying. We didn't have conversations about that. And the courage to ask questions, critical questions about, why are we having pressure injuries? Why are we having bloodstream infections? And not being afraid to advocate on behalf of staff and patients. So I think many times when we think we go into leadership, it's like, I got to know the budget. That budget is a factor, but it's small when you think about these other attributes.
So how do you develop all of these at the same time?
I don't know that you do. Remember, I started out saying getting tools in my box.
Yes.
I don't know that you develop all of these at the same time. I think some of these we come with in our nursing toolkit. If you're relationship oriented, you're going to be relationship oriented no matter where you work. I was a relational person. I'm a connector by nature. And so when you think about, I didn't have to learn that. I didn't have to learn about asking someone how their family is, or, how the soccer game went, or did the baby get the ears pierced over the weekend? I didn't have to worry about that. But I think that some of the other things I was always courageous, but I had to temper it and know how to use it in a more savvy way.
Okay.
Creative, I never considered myself creative. So I had to work on things that lended itself to me being creative. So I think doing a self-assessment and saying, what is it that I think I'm good at? And what do I think I just am terrible at, or I just need to build on? And then I'm going to say it, instead of looking for a job, look for a role that gives you those opportunities.
That sounds great.
Satnam has a question. What are your personal values, Rhonda? I guess any other values that come to mind?
That's a easy one for me. My personal value is excellence. Excellence in care that we provide, excellence in our practices, excellence in how we present ourselves to the public. They think we keep being voted number one in terms of trust with Gallup, but when you look under our covers, sometimes we're not all that trustworthy. And so I think that if my driving
Core value.
Yeah, value is one of excellence in everything that we do.
It seems like it's playing out very well in your life, Rhonda.
It's a daily journey, hour by hour even.
So let's go to the next question, which is, what would you recommend to leaders who are feeling stuck? Now, we've just been through the pandemic.
Yes.
We're stretched in every which way. What would you recommend?
This is a good question, because what I'm seeing now is people asking the question. They rose to the occasion during the pandemic. They really rose, and they were on in a way that was very, very different. And I think that now we have a little bit more breathing room, and people are saying either I don't want to do that again, or if this ever happens, I don't want to be in a role like that. But that pandemic was all hands on deck. So, but what it comes down to is start looking at options and opportunities. If you're stuck, are you stuck in your role? Are you stuck because of education? Are you stuck because you don't want to go to another organization? I had somebody tell me they hated their job, but they were stuck because they were afraid to tell their manager. They turned in a resignation to their leader. I mean, okay, we can help you with that. But I think, again, going back to what am I still passionate about in spite of a pandemic, in spite of all this other staffing crunches, what am I still passionate about? I think coaching. I have several clients now that have come to me because they are thinking about succession planning. They're thinking about what their next move might be, but they realize there's some inside work that needs to occur before they take on roles like that. So when I think about if you're feeling stuck, working with someone to explore the why is truly really important, and working with someone that will make you even curious about the why. I see people who are saying, I'm thinking I'm going to retire soon, but I'm not willing to just hang up everything because I still have a skill set. So there, again, that's another opportunity for someone to engage a coach to figure out, what's my strategy going to be? How am I going to leverage this time between my pre-retirement and my retirement to set myself up in a way that allows me to be continue my professional life in a different capacity? Does Jerry have a question? Okay.
Yeah, but in the chat, Satnam wrote, how do you deal with burnout, counsel, and coach staff to rekindle and find their passion? Are there any other thoughts about that?
You know what? It's having those conversations, having the courage to have those real conversations with staff, and getting behind the burnout, because it's a word that I think we have a tendency to overuse, although I think it's real. And even in that, I see options: taking a leave of absence, taking a sabbatical, taking an opportunity, talking to your leader about, can I job share or trade with somebody, go to a different department? Again, we're in healthcare. They would rather have you go to another department for a period of time than to leave the organization. So I think those are the conversations, but you got to know where you want to go, because when they say, well, what do you think you want to do? It's like, I don't know. You got to start having those conversations with yourself or another leader, a mentor or coach or someone before you sit down with your manager. But I think there are options, so that even if you don't want to leave, there are other departments and things that you may want to do, but it's tied to your passion, or otherwise you'll take that burned out self to another department.
Jerry has a question. How do we get to trust to bring someone on board to assist without feeling they will eventually be a competitor in the same field?
Can you read that again?
Sure. How do we get to trust to bring someone on board to assist without feeling they will eventually be a competitor in the same field?
That's a different question. And I'm hesitating because my mindset is the more the merrier. I'm not going to worry about someone wanting to do what I'm going to do because they're not me. And I bring a unique set of skills and abilities. And if they take a role that I thought I wanted, then God bless them. There's another one out there for me and probably better than the one that I thought I wanted. So I think if we are looking to the right or to the left of us constantly, we will miss what's in front of us because there's more. Again, I have to say it, there's so much to do in this field. If we just look beyond our own fixed mindset about what we can do.
That's great. And you also had a few other options when you are feeling stuck. Next slide.
Oh, look into tuition assistance. And even if you say, well, I don't want to go back to school for a degree. Well, there are certifications programs that your employer might pay for. Look for work in your professional association. Look for a hybrid or a remote situation. I just talked to a young woman yesterday. I'm coaching a young woman who was burned out, and they had a problem in their office, and so they had to evacuate it. And so now everybody's working hybrid. Actually, and she's remote. Do you know her continence has changed 180 degrees because she doesn't have to go in the office? She still sees people, but she had no boundaries in the office and she couldn't set them because she was too nice. But as it turns out, it made a difference for her. So I think sometimes we think we have to do something drastic and it might just be a tweak. And we fuss about it because she didn't want to go remote. She went remote. Now she's happier in her role. Volunteering and in school, in a work location that you think you might want to work in for your professional association, getting some other experiences, finding mentors, other development opportunities. Internships and fellowships, I love these. And again, if you want skill set, I took a fellowship when I was in school, and I drove from Bowling Green, Ohio to Youngstown, Ohio for a fellowship. I made up in my mind, I need to do this fellowship. It has to be paid. So and because I needed the money, but it had to be paid. But I had to sacrifice too, because I had to drive 3 hours every week, stay there 2.5 days so that I got an experience in strategy. So I got an experience in planning, community planning, and program development. I wanted to do that. And everybody asked, well, I thought you wanted to do it in nursing. I've been in nursing. I needed to work on some areas that I didn't feel as confident in. And so that's why I drove for that internship. So those are good too. Looking, and you can set them in such a way, like, can I come and be with you 1 day a week to intern and get a sense of what you might do in this field or how I might navigate my career from here.
Those are great. And I understand that you have we've indicated these resources as sources on the handout so that everybody here does have some ideas of how to access these things after this session. So I appreciate that.
Those resources are diverse, and those resources may serve you now or may serve you later. So I would hold on to that list, because you just don't know. This journey can be as long or as short as you want it to be. So hold on to that list, because you think, oh, I don't need this right now. And then you're looking for the list. So hold on to it.
So when you think of it, think of Rhonda, right?
That's exactly right.
And do you have any final statements before we open it up to questions, Rhonda?
I'm happy that that people logged on to the call, because it says that they're already in pre-contemplation about something. And so they might not be stuck yet, but they might just want to, I just hope I gave you food for thought.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Now we're gonna stop the recording. We're gonna open it up to some questions from the participants.